I think tomorrow you're going to get another game with the weather being what it is, where like Gabriel's just going to be asked to do very little in the offense. They're going to just kind of run a real basic thing and get out of there with a win. And people are going to have to sort of save their torch and pitchforks to change quarterbacks for another week. Like I think that's probably what's going to happen, because they're not going to change quarterbacks after a win in weird weather for a rookie quarterback. So the Shedeur conversation, like we Earl and I talked about that a lot last week, I know, during the bye. I think we're going to circle back to it for sure in the weeks ahead. I think you're looking at least, like maybe the Raiders game is that game, but I think we're probably talking like early December that you see Shedeur. The quarterback thing is interesting. I'm operating on the assumption, Earl, and maybe this is wrong of me to assume because you just don't know with this offense, that they're going to win tomorrow. Everyone's going to, cooler heads will prevail, and Dillon Gabriel will still be the quarterback next week. And then I think the first game that it becomes a bigger question for the team is that Raiders game. Like, depending on what happens against Baltimore next week, if it's a blowout, if the offense still looks terrible, if Dillon still looks terrible, then I think they might consider making that change for the Raiders game. But I honestly think it probably is longer than that even. I think it's probably more so end of November, early December before we see Shedeur.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. If you go into November, into December, and you see Shedeur Sanders for 2 or 3 games, then as an organization, you failed yet again. You failed to properly evaluate the quarterbacks that you took at rookies this year, knowing doggone well that the quarterback position is very important, knowing that you got multiple first-round picks next year, and you didn't give yourself enough time to fairly evaluate the second of the 2 rookie quarterbacks that you drafted. Dillon Gabriel probably was going to get the go first, and he probably was going to get the longer leash, because I personally believe that is Kevin Stefanski's guy. I don't think that Andrew Berry wanted Dillon Gabriel. I do think that Kevin Stefanski do. I don't care what is said about what, and I also believe that if Jalen Milroe wasn't picked 2 picks prior, that Dillon Gabriel probably is not here altogether.
I can see that, especially with Tommy Reese here.
Right, that's another story for another day, but, as I look at it, and I'm going to ask that question next segment, how long should the leash be? And you had this week, coming out the bye week, to prepare. You got Tommy Reese as your offensive coordinator, who's going to be calling the plays. Tommy is not far removed from the college game. So the language, the lingo, you all should be on the same page. If you come out here and you look just as bad as you've looked in the previous 3 to 4 games, then it's time to move on from Dillon Gabriel. It's time to see Shedeur Sanders for the rest of the season so that you can properly evaluate what he can get done, what's on this roster, so you can know how you need to go about your quarterback room next year.
Yeah, listen, what I think is an interesting point off of that is there's plenty of fans who are upset that the Jets did what the Browns wouldn't do this week, right, in tanking for picks. For those that think the Browns screwed that process up, that should have done it even during the offseason and traded Myles Garrett back then and just gotten the picks back then and done all those different things. For the people that feel that way, I do think the organization owes it to themselves to at least do, in their eyes, something right by getting the best read on these 2 quarterbacks moving forward. Because if you're going to draft a quarterback this year, you got to know what you got in these 2 guys. I think we kind of already – I think we're starting to see what it is with Dillon Gabriel. I think we've already seen what it is with Dillon Gabriel. They want to give him a little bit of a longer leash. I can respect that because I'd want the same for the guy that I like the most. So that's fair. But they do owe it to themselves to see by the end of the season a legitimate handful of games to get a sense of what these 2 guys bring to the table, to see if there's anything viable there that they can bank on moving forward, or if they need to think quarterback again next year or even the year after that.
We are now on to the second half of the season, kind of on the back end of this season. And I think that you need to give both quarterbacks a fair amount of starts to properly evaluate them and assess where they are, to determine that if there is something or enough in the tank that will stop you from drafting a quarterback in the first round next year. And I think that it would be a huge injustice, so to speak, or a failure in decision making to go ahead and take another quarterback without assessing both quarterbacks that's currently on your roster. I have asked this question time in and time out. What do people think about the 2026 class versus the 2027 class? And the reason is because I feel like that we have moved the needle on this draft class, the 2026 draft class, from August to now so much that now we just picking at any and everything. When we first started this, Cade Klubnik from Clemson was projected to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. You had Garrett Nussmeier in LSU was another guy that was projected to go very high. At some points before the season kicked off, Arch Manning was projected to be the number 1 overall pick. Even Shedeur Sanders of South Carolina was projected to be one of the top quarterbacks taken in the upcoming NFL draft. Now, we have moved on to Ty Simpson, Dante Moore, and Mendoza. And so it's like the fact that the needle has moved so much from the guys that you swore up and down that were going to be the guy and the reason why that this class in 2026 was so much stronger than 2025, the majority of the general public are not even considering none of those guys to be options anymore. And it goes to show 2 things. 1, it's a crapshoot. 2, none of us know indefinitely what we're talking about. Nothing is concrete when it comes to any of these guys that's draft eligible. And so to me, when I look at Todd Simpson, I think he's a baller. I think he's balling out. I think he has the size, but he's only a 1-year starter. Dante Moore been balling out. He too is only a 1-year starter. Mendoza started last year at Cal. He's starting this year. So of the guys that's projected to be the top 3 quarterbacks in this year's draft, only one of them has more than 1 year starting experience at the collegiate level. If you take a quarterback that high who doesn't have the experience, aren't you in a situation to where this thing could be worse or just the same as it is right here, right now? Especially knowing that you got Shedeur Sanders waiting in the wing who has yet to be given the opportunity to show what he can do. So it's interesting. I'll be very, very interested to see and what you all think as far as how much longer of a leash Dillon Gabriel should have. Should it be 4 quarters, 8 quarters? What do you think? I tend to disagree with the fact that you wait to the end of December or mid-December to play Shedeur Sanders was such an important decision to be made. And even if either one of these guys don't turn out to be it, does that necessarily mean that you force your hand with one of your premium draft picks in the first round just for the sake of doing so because you need one? You got to look at this 2026 quarterback class and ask yourself, based on how much the needle then moved from when we started this college football season until now, that you are absolutely 100% sure one of these 3 young men can change your franchise. Because wasn't nobody talking about Todd Simpson, Dante Moore, or Mendoza to start the season. Everything was about Case, Arch, Garrett, and Shedeur Sanders. Now all of a sudden we acting like that one of these 3 men can come in here and that's the answer to the test. And I'm not sure if that's the case. As far as Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders being worse, I don't personally think that Shedeur Sanders can be much worse than what I've seen already from Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel is supposed to be this guy who has this quote unquote supercomputer, right? And I get it. Bad passes is bad passes. But when you come in and think about some of these decision makings, like that one that resulted in the safety, when you made that bonehead decision in the back of the end zone, that's not something that's not a mistake that I would expect a quarterback like Dillon Gabriel to be making. At the end of the day, he doesn't throw the ball downfield. He's missing guys wide open. And when guys are running wide open and he gets it to them, it's not like they're doing anything to hold on to the football at all. I just think that there's a lot of deficiencies. I think a lot of what he doesn't do well has showed up on tape, and it continues to show up on tape. And you're seeing defensive coordinators continue to take advantage of that. So if that being the case, I was willing to give him the grace. Okay, you go into the bye week, you come out, you play the New York Jets. Depending on how Dillon Gabriel looks, which I'm not confident that it's going to look much better, even with Tommy Rees calling the plays, then your time is up. We got another quarterback that we need to evaluate before we make any decisions on what we're going to do with a quarterback position at the quarterback position in 2026. And then even when it's time to make that decision, think long and hard about that 2026 class as it compares to the 2027.